Hey, what's up, everyone? English Dave here with my co-hosts Rocket, Mike, Raven, and Mercedes. What's up, everyone?
What up, Dave?
What up?
We are here for our weekly discussion on HBO's Lovecraft Country. This past week we had episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu. Is it Daegu?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Meet Me in Daegu. Daegu. It took me a while to pronounce it, to get the pronunciation. The synopsis is as follows. In the throes of the Korean War, nursing student Jaya crosses paths with a wounded Atticus who has no recollection of their violent first encounter. This is a long time coming episode. We've been teased of the character Jaya. The first time we saw her was in Tick's vision as the Princess of Mars. We've only heard her voice and seen her in visions, but those visions aren't exactly real life. We get to finally see what she's like. She's played by Jamie Chung. And before I get into it, I have to firstly say, once again, this show has taken, and has Raven cut off? She's left us.
Oh no, Raven!
I'll wait till she comes back, and then I'll continue.
I'm here.
You back, Raven?
Yeah.
We can't see you, Raven.
I can hear you. I'm just trying to see if this shit will stop glitching. Nope. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it'll stop glitching.
No.
It works with the episode. This is it's a spooky show. You got a glitchy camera. It's fine.
Yeah, right?
It's fine.
I honestly thought that was a filter for first time I saw
Right.
it. It's working just well enough.
You thought it was a glitch filter?
Yeah.
It looks like it
just
could be.
go
Yeah.
with that, Raven.
It's a
Raven's
new
got
update.
special effects. It's fine.
Yeah,
Program
Raven's
it
special
yourself. Don't ask questions anymore.
Right, just move
Yeah,
along.
for sure.
Anyway, this show continues to do a great job of taking actors who I was kind of like, okay, they're fine, I'm indifferent to them, to really being like, okay, I see you as an actor now. And I think with Jamie Chung, I see her as an actor now, not just someone who can, read the script and whatever. I think she really delivered. So I'm going to start with you,
Yeah.
Raven. What did you think of this episode?
This episode as a whole, wow. I think just even the themes that the episode touches on, I think the show always does a great job of merging history or educating without it being all in your face.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here you go, this is the situation, this is society at the time, Google it if you need to, but we're going to deal with this family, I like the idea of, I think, the cultural expectations, I like the general themes of this episode. I loved the acting. Like you said, Jamie Chung, for me, I didn't really even see as an actress before this, and I felt like this episode really showed me her skills as an actress, and she's easily become one of my favorites in the show, too.
Mm-hmm. Mike, same question. What did you think of this week's episode?
Like I was saying before, it filled in a lot of gaps. It was half a standalone episode, but also a prequel to everything kind of building off of what we've already seen. We understand a lot more of Atticus and what was like before he came back home. And then all the mysterious calls that we knew was pretty much the only mystery left, but was also one of the most intriguing. So this one was really exciting. Also gets more into other mythology and lore besides what's in the U.S. So in order to jump off that with actual history, as it's always been doing outside of our own country, this has been, man, it keeps getting one of my favorites. It's it's getting better and better. So yeah, this is now, I think, one of my new favorites.
Sadie's, you are a fan of Asian cinema, both animated and live action. And
Definitely.
I feel like this episode kind of dabbles in some of it, especially the mythology of it all. So how did you think of this episode?
I just think this episode took, metaphorically speaking, if it was a relay race from Crazy Rich Asians and what we saw from what we could do and how we can make other cultures beautiful and just resonate on screen, this episode definitely took that torch from that, because if that didn't happen, we would not have been able to see a culmination of this, because this was even a more raw experience. It had the ugly parts of wars that we've had within the Korean War. It had the not so glamorous moments, and it also had moments where it showed that the immigrant did have the American dream. She's in Korea. She's not here. She's in Korea watching a Judy Garland movie, and it still is resonating with her the same way that film resonated with Americans. So I thought that was a beautiful kind of scene because it just showed once again that dummies, all humans are the same. The things that we like in pop culture are the things that all brown, white, whatever people love. So that's why I appreciated this episode, because it just showed that in a different culture. Like, we've been showing it from a Black perspective, and then we have this one glimpse, and you're going to give homage to Asia. And I think that's really awesome that they did a really good job. It's not just like, we just gave you, like, we gave you an episode, but you gave them a whole episode to tell a story.
No, you already started off in terms of some of our discussion points in terms of the opening scene. I did like the opening scene, showing her that she loves movies and just the escape that movies give you. As part of her escape. And like you mentioned, the American dream. Part of this episode is also showing us, as much as it's branching out, it's showing us how another part of the world sees America, how America is to the other world, right? The other part of the world. And that's a huge kind of point of view that many Americans
definitely
aren't aware
appreciated
of.
That.
Right? It's like, how does America look from the world's point of view, from what the world wants? Because the rest of the world wants America to be the great nation it says it is. Right. This also highlights
we used to be. It's only now where it's like we're embarrassed to tell people where we're from, but like that's proud to be an American was a song for a reason.
But I even think everyone used to know Judy Garland. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
But I even think that's.
But I also love that. That's why I definitely think that that's why it's used. And I appreciate that, because the film starts with Judy Garland in her glory, her glory days when she was at her prime. Which is how you view America, at the time. It's like everyone's with the American dream. And, so I feel like you see that side and it starts that way, and it ends with one of the last, recorded speeches that she has. Well, not speeches, just conversations, interviews, where you can tell what years in Hollywood has done to her. And how it's affected her, how it's changed her. Even her tone is completely different, but it's the same woman. And I feel like that's how you feel in the end of the episode, And I do love that they use Judy Garland, because it's like, well, this is the dream, this is the perception, this is the image, and this is what's really happening. This is who this character really is.
And I think that's
what you... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think Raven hit the nail on the head in terms of it was that the dream was just that, a dream, but the reality is this. Right. That's why I love the scene where you go from her in the movie theater straight to the Americans in their tanks coming. We're bringing freedom to everybody. I just thought, In fact, Mike, I want to ask you about that sequence. Like how much of the the Korean War is one of those things. This is another great show that's doing something for us, where it's educating us, or at least piquing our interest in things that we're like, wait, how do I not know much about this?
Yeah.
How much did you know about the Korean War before this? Right.
This is also highlighting a lot that we didn't get. I don't know about you, but I'm guessing your public education was the same as mine. We didn't get a lot on the Korean War. Got out 5 to 7 years on World War II. Got a blink of the First World War. Nothing on Vietnam, and almost nothing on Korea. So a lot of this was, over the years, has had to learn myself, because it was one of those where it wasn't there was no decided winner. It still isn't. It's still technically a cold, quote unquote, a cold war going on right now. There was never made peace. So with America being involved, they see that as a loss, and that's why they don't want to teach that or talk about it.
We don't talk about the ones we lost.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah, or someone say, it was a tie,
Right.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, there was no real winner.
We agreed to disagree. That's what I feel like everyone that talks about
was,
Vietnam, we agreed to disagree. We left because, we decided that it was fine.
Yeah.
We gave them freedom.
Right.
There's only millions murdered, whatever.
And the context of the Korean War, South Korea had gone through a lot up to this point with World War II and Japanese invasion, and now the Americans. It also speaks to how it affected culture, their culture and their kind of relationships with each other. And Raven, I want to go into this with you. One of the big aspects of this episode is the relationship between Jaya and her mother, right? In terms of, I love how it opens up talking about how they have no respect because there's no man in the house. The mom, I love how it sets up. I don't know if you felt the same way, how it sets up that, it's about the mother sending her to find a man, almost like Mulan style. Right.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that. I appreciate the fact that this episode kind of plays on your not assumed but almost like learned prejudices, you know, or like the Hollywood tropes that we all come to expect. And I definitely thought for a while that this story was gonna basically be the, you know, American portrayal of, you know, Korean culture at the time. So I do like that they play on your emotions, because my first time watching the episode, obviously I thought, wow, that's so messed up. You know, she needs a man to justify her, and everything's about honor, and, you know, and I feel like that's every time you watch an American film, that's the comment, you know, it's like, oh, there's so much pressure in Korea, or, you know, Asian cultures. It's so much pressure. Oh, kids can't be kids. And, you know, it's this whole thing. You can't be your true self. So I definitely thought that this episode would be that, but I appreciated that. I felt like that's what made it relatable. I feel like, had we known in that moment going in that, you know, she wasn't a human, per se, I think that it definitely would have changed the approach, because watching in the beginning, you get to know the human side of her. We get to see her feelings or perceived feelings, you know, it seems as if she's ashamed in the beginning, or, you know, as if she really wants her mother's approval, and, you know, she feels disappointment, you know, so, I did love that angle, how it plays to everyone, especially Americans' idea of, oh, you know, angsty, you know, upbringing, oh, my childhood, you know, it's definitely a big thing. And I think that they played on that very well, you know, in this, because, you know, I definitely thought we were watching one thing.
Well, especially because they set her up as, when she says, oh, I'm going to get an education and get a job. And I was like, no, fuck them.
Yeah, when she says, no, you need to bring home a man. I'm not thinking like, she means bring home a man.
Right.
She said men.
Eat them.
Yeah, men. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, what?
And that's the thing, too. It went over my head, you know, like I saw it as man. I didn't see the men part. Right. So it was kind of just like, yeah, whatever. My first time around, I was like, typical. You know, and I didn't really think much of it. And I do like that. And just like something as small as, you know, oh, maybe next year you'll have enough cabbage to, you know, make enough kimchi as you want. You know, I never really thought of it that way. You know, like, wow, I guess kimchi is precious. I fucking love kimchi, but I never thought of it as something like, you know, like this is gonna last us. This is something that we aspire to have more of. So I did like that. I did like the idea of like showing where they were in terms of class, how society views them, how they are amongst their own community, you know, how not only the daughter is viewed, but how the mom is viewed also. I love that whole idea and how we get introduced to all of those relationships.
And it plays more on the pressures of society in terms of when we see her at nursing school, right? Where we see we're introduced to her friend Young Ja, who just found a man, and everyone's like, oh my God, you found a man, and maybe you don't have to finish school right now. It just, for me, it was just like, wow, you know, just at a time where it's like finding a man is a good equal to education, right? It's a good substitute.
It's better
even, yeah, like you said, even better.
Better than, you know, it's like we prefer you have a man first. If you want to go educate yourself with a man, I guess, but like definitely have a man first.
Right. And I love the sequences when they go for the speed dating stuff. And getting to meet some of the other guys and how the guys react when she mentions Judy Garland, and the guy's like, "You're gonna watch the American propaganda." I was just like, "Damn, okay." Like, oh,
yeah,
shit.
I guess so. I guess and happiness in songs is propaganda,
right? And I don't know if you guys caught it, or maybe it's me reading too much into things. One of the other guys that she kind of connects with, who also likes Judy Garland, I get a sense that he was gay, because Young Ja ends up with him, and I get a sense that Young Ja is also gay, and they know each other, kind of thing. And because the way he talks about liking,
I couldn't tell if she was flirting throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, I think.
Like
I think there's something there. So I think because she ends up with that guy, and I think that guy's gay, and so they have like a thing where they both pretend, because, you know, especially at that time where you couldn't be open to
gay communist. Damn.
Yeah, right. You'd have to kind of find some kind of excuse. So everyone would have beards and stuff. Mercedes, we finally get the official visual for what happened. Did you recognize the guy? He's from Heroes. He's one of the actors in Heroes.
Oh yeah,
the guy she ends up killing.
You're right.
How did you feel the first time you saw the tails coming out?
My whole reaction, that whole scene was, I was like, the entire time, just like mouth open, just like, wait, what's happening? Oh, but it was a mix of like
in this show.
like shock, awe, and just like damn.
No, you went from like ooh sexy to whoa.
That's
especially the eyes popping out the eyes.
That's when, and I think that's when my mouth completely dropped, because I was like with it, where I was like, okay, this is weird. But then when I saw the furry eye thingies, I was like,
yeah, because at first I thought it was tendrils, then I realized no, those are tails. Those are furry.
There's hair.
It's not.
Yeah.
Those are like tarantula legs. They're like, no me gusta. Can I speak to the manager? I want to return this.
Like no.
Yeah, no.
Well, we get.
We're gonna clean this mess up.
Yeah.
We get the explanation that we find out that her mother had made an agreement that if she kills or gets the souls of 100 men, she gets to get her daughter back, quote unquote. And at this point, she's killed 96. But we find out that she's something called a Kamiho. And without going into detail, Sadie, do you have some information to kind of briefly explain what a Kamiho is?
A Kumiho is...
Kumiho.
Yeah, it's something that I think all of our anime fans would recognize from Naruto or Love, Death, and Robots. It is a nine-tailed fox. A nine-tailed fox comes from Chinese mythology originally, but because everything branches off and everyone takes and makes their own story, it is used in Korea, Japan, and all other Asian countries to tell a different story. But the bottom line is that it is a female depiction. So not always, it can sometimes be a trans character as well, because it can turn into a female. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be 100% female, which is why it's cool when you see it in different variations. But in our story, she is strictly female. And then the female then consumes either the heart or the liver. And if you remember human biology, the heart is one of the main things other than the brain to keep the body like going, but also your liver. You can't live without your liver because it detoxifies your body. But I think it's interesting because you and Raven, like I've obviously seen anime and I watch different Korean dramas and things from other countries. So like I perceived her mother's relationship a little bit differently. Like I already knew something was wrong because when she said to bring a man home, I like, wait, she's in school, so technically to bring honor to the family, like if she's in, like that should be okay. So there was already like red flags for me, but then once it got to the Kumiho part and you heard why the mother was alone, it truly made sense, because it didn't make sense to me like why she was trying to blame the daughter for like the reason why there was no husband in the home.
I just love how it's cleaning the blood afterwards. It's like, damn, you're just used to this. Like it's like, okay, we know what to do next.
Like the guts, though. It wasn't just blood. It was like pieces.
Right? One of the interesting things about this episode is how time passes. Because I realized second viewing that a lot of time passes from the beginning to the end of the episode. Almost like maybe even months to years. Right? Because she goes through her whole nursing school to actually becoming a nurse. I like the scenes in the camp, showing the American soldiers treat them like, even though they need their help, it's like he's going to treat them like shit. And getting closer to young Ja and seeing that young Ja is probably a communist, secretly, but telling her, I don't, I'm not going to cause you any shit. I don't care what you're doing. And then just seeing what the Americans are doing, or standing by and seeing her fellow people being hanged. And then realizing that, I think throughout all this, you see how she sees what soldiers are doing, that they're killing machines. And then realizes to her mom that she doesn't want to kill anymore. So Raven, I'll talk to you about that. There's that moment where you realize that Jaya isn't the Jaya her mom thinks he is.
Exactly. So is it Jaya that doesn't want to kill, or is it the
Right.
Kumiho that has become, because the Kumiho's been here too long? So I thought that was yeah.
Well, not even too long. It's alluded that the Kumiho was there all along once the mom made the deal. Right? It was completely swapped out.
Yeah, well, she completely, yeah. Which I did. That was like my favorite.
It's just like when she's like, "Oh, reciting this." That's the song she used to sing.
Yeah,
no.
As tough as it was, I think for me, like that was my oh shit. That was like the scariest moment of the episode. Despite all the blood and gore, I feel like the moment of realization that this mom, as much as you've been raising this quote unquote daughter, you don't really know much about her because you've chosen to see only your daughter and not the fact that the spirit that you asked for inhibited your daughter's body. And I loved it. I loved the switch, because she went from, just talking to her, oh, I want my daughter back, and then she starts singing the nursery song. And what did she say? Suni?
Yeah, she's like, that's
She's
what my
like,
daughter
yo,
used
when
to
she
say.
called her name, that scared the shit out of me.
Right.
It's like, oh.
It's
Like, just not saying mom was like,
Right.
oh, But I think that, that she's saying, like, you were a pariah. He baited you. Like, I was like,
Oh,
ooh,
shit.
Ooh. Like, there's just so many shots fired.
It was like, that's the song he used to sing every time after he violated your daughter. I was like, damn.
Exactly. You used to sing to your daughter while he raped her.
Like, holy shit.
It shows
She said, I don't have your daughter's soul.
I have
his memories.
Oof.
Like, damn.
Because it shows
And
you
that's
the
fucked
flaw
up,
of the
too.
mom, like what she
Mhm.
did, that it's not the whole episode, you like it alludes, and then you get the hints and the breadcrumbs that it's the dad, and so you're like, oh, negative towards the dad, it's always the dad's fault, rape, and then you find out when the Kumiho switches, and it's like, I'm not who you think I am. You did that swap to hide your own guilt, to try to fix a mistake, that to hide it more. She could have asked support from her neighbors and whatever, but she didn't, because she was shunned by her neighbors. So what she did was she brought in a spirit to kill her husband, but that didn't fix anything because she still lost her daughter. And that's what I meant by too late, because now the Kumiho's here and she's like, that has human feelings, and it's like starting to attach to people.
And I think part of that,
one of the things
go on.
Well, one of the things I liked a lot too about this episode is that this episode touched on a lot of things that I think other shows kind of tiptoe around. I love the fact that this is, this episode secretly is kind of also about reclaiming your body after sexual trauma, so it's like, it's very interesting how a lot of it unfolds, and I think that just something as small as like dealing with the fact that, this was your husband, this is what happens. I think the mom has a hard time with coming to grips with what actually happened. And also, I love that they touched on the fact that Jaya has an issue, the Kumiho, that's how you say it, right? Kumiho?
Yeah, Kumiho.
The fact that with the memories that she has, she knows that her father, or the father of this girl whose body she has,
I think it was stepfather,
loved
right?
her.
It was stepfather. It was stepfather.
Is it?
Yeah, it was stepfather.
Yeah, because the dad saves them out of. That's why she marries him and ignores the abuse and the rape.
Yeah.
Because when she gets married, they're saved from shame because she had a baby out of wedlock.
Yeah.
So everybody accepts their relationship because there's a man in the house.
Yeah. Okay, so I think with that being said, I think it was like just really interesting, all the depths that they went through to kind of fully explain kind of every side of sexual trauma and what happens there, and between what Jaya's actually going through, the Kumiho spirit and the mom, how it affects everyone, and even the thought process of the father, whose memory she has is like really interesting. And I love that one of the things that it touched on was her confusion with love because of her first introduction to it, or the introduction that she knows, and all of the memories that she has, all the male memories that she has, where we only know what her stepdad did, let alone the other 94 souls, whose memories she has. So I think that is interesting, that her idea of love is construed because, she sees love through the eyes of men, and a lot of these men that she does see love through the eyes of are predators.
One, we spoke about the different people that she meets, and one of the surprise that's obvious in hindsight was meeting Tick there. I didn't expect to see Tick in this episode, even though it kind of makes sense to see Tick in this episode. But our first meeting of Tick, the character we've gone so attached to, Mike, I'll talk to you about that. Just seeing Tick kill her friend who's suspected as a spy. How did you feel about our boy Tick in that moment?
Okay, so to fully, I guess, grasp that is learning the backstory of where that all kind of came from in history. As we know, is like, Korea was being now liberated from the fallen Japanese Empire. Russia wanted to continue their campaign once Germany was defeated, and so they were going after the northern territory of Korea, trying to install their own leaders. But the UN wanted to do their way, and so that ended up became how South and North became separated through backed Russia and China, and then versus the UN, with most of the US military pretty much 90% of the military was backed by the U.S. So, and also the U.S. was now coming off of what we can probably claim as the last win. So we're now feeling like the big superpower just from 5 years ago. And then also now at the time, if you were in North Korea, you were a prisoner of war, tortured and killed. And if you were in South Korea, if you were even suspected of being a communist, you were shot. So that went along with not only people in South Korea, but also with the army, as you can tell with Atticus. So clearly, this is something he's been used to. And he didn't hesitate. Couldn't really tell if maybe he believes in it or not, because he's probably been through enough mind games as it is. You don't know who to trust at this point. This has been going on now for probably like a year. He just got in there. So while he may not enjoy it, he probably has a part of him that believes it. Like, no, you're probably a spy, and we don't have any reason to trust any of you. So I'm going to do what needs to be done. And he did this on purpose. He volunteered for this. Doesn't mean that he wants to in his heart. I'm sure we all know him by now. So
it plays in a couple of themes we've seen throughout this show. One being that our master's tools, right? We only know the tools in which they give us to play with, so we can't think beyond what we're told to do. And then that carries on. We spoke about this with Ruby's episode, right? And how we tend to keep the cycle keeps on continuing. And another aspect of this is when Tick mentioned, I ran away to the war to get away from being like my father or his anger, but the war found it in me. And we're seeing it, right? We're actually seeing it, his fears coming to fruition. But then I like how that's juxtaposed when Jayas meets him in the hospital, right? And he obviously doesn't recognize her, and his frustrations are just seeing him as this person to kill her friend, to seeing him helpless and vulnerable.
You can't help still be on Jayas' side. Like, you know what? I don't feel like I don't even know you anymore, chick.
I love that.
Right? We were all mad at him. We were like, ew. We don't like you anymore. You can't sit with us.
Yeah, like the second and third time I saw that episode, I skipped it. I was like,
if I don't see it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, like, fuck out of here. That's not Tick, man. It's not my Tick.
And we see
I'm in denial.
Our book, The Count of Monte Cristo, returns, and we get more context as to why, again, this book means a lot to him, right? We start seeing more of that. And I like how they have that conversation, and you see that she's more of a movie buff, where she's like, the ending is like this, and he's like, yeah, but that's the book ending. I mean, that's the movie ending. The book ending is different. And I wonder if that's a subtle nod at the show, like a wink wink.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's one of our cultural references for like the episode, just to throw that in there so we don't have to like bring it back later. But, if we're going to talk about it now, but definitely, for sure.
It's like the differences between the movie and the book. And I
like
that.
Almost think it was like a Martha moment. We're like,
Martha.
you like Count of Monte Cristo?
Martha.
I like Count of Monte Cristo. Oh man, I've never met anyone like you.
Said Martha. That's official, guys. Hashtag Martha
moment. That's a thing.
Hashtag Martha
moment.
It'll never be that bad.
I mean, not on this show, but it happens.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
We get moments where Tick and Jayasta slowly fall in love, and I like the moment when she turns up at the army base and has to pretend to be a hooker because that's the only way she can get in, right? And that in itself speaks a lot, right? That in order for certain people of color or women to fit in certain places, you have to come as a perceived.
I just thought it was a nice coat.
No, but the guy even mentions like, oh, she wanted the hookers, and he makes a joke about it. The Korean American guy.
I thought it was a nice coat.
But what I like about that one of those moments is when they have the conversation, and she says to the Korean American guy, what are you doing here? Isn't it great in America? Because again, it shows you perception, right? They don't realize that, and the guy says, yeah, it's great, but not for us.
Did you meet Judy Garland? Ha!
Right. If he was a driver and I was a houseboy.
Looked at her like, bitch, are you crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you asking us?
Judy Garland.
Why would meet her? Of my skin? Like, what?
Tick was like, we drive.
Right? Like, you think friends of Judy Garland's out here shooting people, shooting commies in the street? No, I don't think so.
And then it also shows us that while Tick wanted to go out to war to escape his issues with his dad, this other guy was forced. He's like, I'm an outsider there, I'm an outsider here. But they forced me into their war. And that's another thing you see with a lot of immigrants that, that move abroad. I've kind of had to deal with this myself. I was born in Zambia in Southern Africa, moved to England when I was younger, and came to America. So that sense of belonging for me is also, I understand that it's weird because I go to Africa back there. I'm that guy from England, or I go to, or that guy from America. I'm always that guy from the other place, and so I kind of understood his frustrations in that moment where it's like either way I'm an outsider depending wherever I go, but. You know what, Tick, as much as I got mad at him...
I did appreciate that sentence.
Yeah,
it
right?
gave a lot of depth to that.
It did.
So it was just one little line, but I was like, yeah. It said, ask him, he volunteered.
But Raven...
Which was so true.
Right? But Raven, I want to talk to you about Tick's swag, making that little makeshift movie theater in the background.
Hey.
I thought that was kind of...
Would have got me easy.
You got the points there.
Probably wouldn't have taken that much, honestly, but I'd
Panty
appreciate
dropper. Whole cinema.
Yeah, because instantly I was like, God damn it, because... At first, I can't lie. When we all saw what Tick did, which was hard for me, it was hard for me to forgive him. Like even as a viewer, I was like, I don't know now.
Me too.
I don't know if I could get through the
girl,
rest of
me
the
too.
season. And then it was like I was also thinking to myself, but how? Because I know what she becomes to him. So or at least we've had hints to what she becomes. So I think for me, all I could think was like, but how can you bounce back from that, and I mean throwing together a makeshift fucking movie theater in the middle of the trenches, kind of
especially back then.
It wasn't even I thought it was going to be the old movie, like the one Meet Me in St. Louis Again. He brought out the newness.
Right.
Color.
That would be like if somebody set up Tenant on a rooftop for you and was like, let's watch a movie, and you showed up.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Tenant.
you can get the
And
panties. It's a real thing.
Like,
Right? It's IMAX.
Yeah,
4K.
It's like you got it.
Watching
Right.
it. What?
It's like my best friend might understand.
I like the line. I like the line where he says to her, "You got lost in movies. I got lost in books."
I did love that
like,
line
yeah.
because I felt like instantly it was almost a line to the audience. This is why, all right? Like for those of you that are still like, but no, this is why. They both escape. Okay, just similar places. Martha, you're fine.
and then.
But yeah, I did love it. I felt like it was a really sweet moment. I feel like we always have these moments with Tick because I can't lie. What's the actor's name? Jonathan
Majors.
I always want to say Myers. Jonathan Majors. For me, I think from episode 1, I was like really not attracted to this man at all. And like, for most of the episodes, like, but he does things that I'm like, fine, I get it.
I think
he grows
whatever.
on you. He's
I think he does it.
He does, because at first I really I didn't like his expressions. I just wasn't into him, So I think as the show goes on, it's like you understand everyone's relationship with Tick. I think, it makes sense. I understand why the ladies are swooning. He works hard. He's a romantic. It's like, that's nice.
And I think another aspect of Tick, and I want to go into this next with you, Sadie's, the scene where Tick and JR have sex. I think part of one of the reasons why the ladies love Tick, my wife says this too. She says she doesn't find him physically attractive, but there's something about him. And I think because the character...
I just said the same thing. He's not...
But I think part of that...
He doesn't do it for me, but man...
I think part of that is that, like the next scene where he's not afraid to show his vulnerable side. When he tells her that he's a virgin. He almost like...
I think for me, one of the biggest things too, when he was crying in the hospital.
Right, exactly.
I think, I don't know if it's the woman in me, but man, something to fix... Something broken, beaten down. It's like, oh, let me fix you. I can help. So I think for like a lot of the females watching that, I feel like that they were playing on that. They're like, oh, you get it. You want to fix him up when he was crying after throwing his book. Like, oh, this little bookworm, he's so sad he can't read his little chapter. It's too much.
Book that you already read 50 million times.
You want me to read you the last chapters?
Classic Florence Nightingale syndrome right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you got me.
But again, and then I feel like that's topped off by when he's like, sorry, it's my first time. She's like, oh, I have to definitely...
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't kill him.
Did this 99
Come
times.
on.
Right.
Like, granted, we know he doesn't die, but a part of me was like, maybe Tick has been dead this whole time.
Right.
There's no way he's escaping those 9 tails. Like, there's no way. Like, throughout the whole episode, I was like, maybe Tick has been like Letty this whole time, where like she did kill him.
In this sex scene, we see the first time that Jaya's having sex because she wants to, because she likes the person. You know, she holds back her abilities and she starts getting in there with Tick until she tells him to leave, you know, and she saves his life essentially, right? I thought that, again, this show continues to right? This show continues to also shoot sex scenes very artistically. You know, like it's
so artistic because even the ugly ones,
right?
This is our first
even the bad ones, I'm still like, wow, that lighting,
right? That's the thing.
You know,
like I'm not looking at titties and stuff feeling horny.
Even that terrible sex scene with Montrose that made me extremely uncomfortable. The lighting was beautiful.
I'm like, this is beautiful
set design, art direction. Right. Yeah, and I love that. I felt like it was the first time you got to see her have emotions, which shocked her.
Yeah.
The second
and that's what her mom says. You know, that's the thing that her mother keeps drilling into her. You can't feel. You're a monster. You can't feel. And one of the themes in this episode that we didn't touch on yet is you know, just the theme of, you know, expectation, trying to meet expectation and trying to be someone that you're not for the comfortability of others, whether it be, you know, in your close relationships with like your parents or, you know, even relationships amongst friends, peers. You know, this is all about, you know, this is society's perception of you. This is what you're supposed to be and this is what you are.
Right.
And I felt like that, you know, all of the sex scenes were very honest to that, and it felt very raw in a way. You feel very vulnerable with them, and I love the way that it's portrayed, you know, because we see her shocked because it's the first time Jaya has felt anything, you know, and I did love the way that it was shown. And then, you know, eventually when they do have sex for the first time, she's really gentle, you know, and is there for him and, you know, and is comforting. You know, which I feel like for her, it's the first time. Obviously, you never made it to that point, you know, where after sex you're able to hold somebody. Usually they're in pieces. So,
or it's
I did
always
love
sexual trauma, like because she was abused. Like there's never ever been like a.
She's probably thinking to herself, "This is so much cleaner,"
right?
You know,
there's never been a silver lining for a sexual experience for Jaya. So the first time she does do it as a kumiho with him, it is totally this transformative experience. And then it's interesting because that's when you see the kumiho as its own separate person versus something that was transformed from the daughter, because the kumiho is then understanding its feelings and like, wait, I don't want to kill this person because this is how it's making me feel. But we already know from previous seasons that that's not Jaya, really. So it's a whole new level of psychology and understanding and like, you know, personification of a being.
Yeah, and it's the first time you get a hint that like both Jaya and Tick can be who they would like to be, you know, that they can break out of this monster persona.
Right.
Which actually takes me to my next point. You know, we get to see the two of them bonding. Again, I spoke earlier at the beginning of the episode that we get a lot of time passing. And I think they spend a lot of time together. It's insinuated that it's not just a few days. We get even montage of them playing in the snow and things like that. And they both begin to bond. And, you know, one of my favorite scenes is when Jaya opens up, tells the truth to him. You know, about that she recognizes him as the one that killed her friend. And he says, then why did you do all this? And I love that it switches and you know, it speaks on what Raven just touched on. Her mother has told her she's a monster. Society has told him he's a monster. You know, he's only good for, as a black American man to the American government, is to be a killing machine. Outside of that, you're not useful. So they're both told they're monsters. And she's like realizing we can be more than what we're told we are. You know, the scene almost starts off saying like she's going to break up with him or have conflict, but she starts it off, right? But she's like, no, we can be more than this. You know, there's a line where she's like, the first time I saw you in the hospital, the anger shot through me like lightning. All I could see was my friend's murderer, right? It's just like, what?
I was at home almost ugly crying. I was like silent crying the way her face is.
It's like, we've done monstrous things.
We all felt that, yeah.
And it's not just... it's also taken her perspective that she's playing a spirit. Spirits don't have friends. Spirits don't have feelings. You know, she was really meant to just be summoned to do one purpose, and it was just to annihilate this guy, you know. But now, you know, she's spent enough time. She's got to do 100 guys or blow up 100 dudes. And now she's realizing this is what it's like to become human and not so much a monster that she was brought into this reality to be. And it's a monster in different senses on either side. So to see these two clash to see how they compare to each other and somehow come out as lovers was probably the most depth in this episode that we've seen, maybe in the series. You know, when it comes to that, like, yeah, like Tick and Letty are a great couple, but then these two, this was on another level. You know, this was well, he's in love with the spirit, mind you. Yeah, so like. This is
yeah, that's true.
non-human.
He's not in love with Jaya. He's in love with the
this
yeah.
And this is when they have the proper sex, and she can show she proves that she can control the monster in her, right? She can actually control it if she wants to, and she gets to feel real love, like Raven said. It gets to the point where she can feel the aftermath of it as well, you know, and fully be in a place where she wants to be, not because her mother says so, society says so, or whatever, or it's forced upon her. It's what she wants. And I love this idea that, you know, we're not the monsters they make us to be. You know, it's like we're only monsters because we're forced to be monsters. We're forced to have this life where if we could have the life we wanted, we wouldn't be the perceived monsters that we are. And Raven, I want to talk to you after sex. I get that sense that Jaya wants to tell Tick about who she really is. You know, she even tells him briefly the story about the Kumiho, you know, but and they talk about being together and him almost leaving to go back, and she's like, no, I want to stay with you, blah blah blah. But then they have sex, and that's when boom, you know, the flashbacks. Ooh, first
his eyes actually got suctioned, right? It's hard to come back from that.
It's like you see,
like, not only were you like being wrapped around by like what feels like I'm assuming spider
we only
legs,
saw the
like,
holes from the front that got filled, guys. So like he was violated in every way.
Yeah. Also, Misha Green posted the artwork for this episode, which is actually in my image. I don't know if y'all can see, but there's like
the tendrils.
His penis is also.
It's very
attached.
much. It was very much tentacle porn.
Yeah,
if
like a tail also attaches to his penis, like one of those 9. So also think of that. You know, it was a really tough scene to watch. It's a tough scene to watch because it's like we all kind of grow to love, you know, the Kumiho in this moment, and you know, or as of now, and it's like we completely love their relationship. I'm here for it. It's like, damn it, Tick, you know, just let her explain. Which at the same time, though, if I was him, there's nothing
I
you
would
could
run.
say to me. I'm sorry, I'd be out. Like there's no real way to explain that.
It's the truest form of violation because it starts off as sex, and then, you know, when she starts
it's
with
worse than finding out.
Yeah, it starts out as sex, right? And then, you know, when the tails first start coming out, you're like, whoa, what's happening? And then when the tails start doing what they do, it really it takes your soul and your memory. So it's the truest form of violation for a human. You're not just taking the person's sex. You're not taking the person's, you know, strength. You're taking the whole, like, the soul, the essence of who they are.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to leave you to explain. I'm running. Maybe later if you talk to me later, but in that moment, I'm running.
Yeah, and that's why you.
Yeah, like I'll call you.
That's why it was heartbreaking and beautiful because you felt bad for both of them. Like you wanted the time for Jaya to explain, but then you knew, like, nah, that's a lot for that poor man.
Right, my naked butt is out of there, man. Too like.
You just raped. You raped my whole being.
Yeah.
But Raven,
that's violating.
Raven, we see some clips that, and we see, because, you know, she usually sees memories, but we also see things that seem to be that haven't happened yet. Because if Tick is a virgin and the only other person he's slept with, who is that person he's in bed with?
Yeah, so I'm like, who's that girl?
With
this woman
with the titties out.
Is that Letty though, without a head?
No, it's not. I rewinded it like 3 times. That's some random brown queen. I don't know who that is, but
it's a darker woman.
Nah, I paused, I rewinded. I was like, who that woman? But no, it definitely isn't any woman.
Like, and then we see some things about maybe Tick getting killed, dying. He's hung up on something.
We already know he's gonna die because that's what she was told.
He's gonna die. Also, though, before he met Letty, there was like a baptism. So I think like what she saw may have been like, I don't know if it was metaphoric or literal. You know, that's the thing that I wonder moving forward. Because it's like some of the things that we know happened, the way she saw them was slightly different. So I'm interested to see if those things did happen, we didn't see them, Or is it just that everything that she's seeing is kind of metaphoric and she's going to have to like decode, you know? Because like there was a baptism, then he sees Letty. So I'm wondering if the baptism was kind of his rebirth when he was, you know, going to the other portal kind of thing, you know? Because that wasn't shown in the flashes, which you would have seen.
I think the flashes were selective, and I think those flashes are things that haven't happened yet. But I also think the fact that she was trying to tell him not to go, it means that these are things that can be stopped if he doesn't go down a certain path, right? It's not like it will happen. It's like it can be stopped if you don't.
Well, it's like the whole battle of destiny and free will.
Exactly, right.
You know,
it's that whole thing. I think it's a prophecy that it's more rather than it being kind of misconstrued. I think it's a prophecy that can be stopped if he chooses not to chase it. It's one of those. That's why she says, "Don't go home."
Definitely,
right.
But I mean, also as a general theme of every episode has been people telling Tig to not proceed, and him kind of just completely ignoring everyone. Right. Like his dad has gone through many lengths to get Tig to just stop. Same as Jaya, but then, you know, same as even Letty to some extent. Everyone's been like, just stop going down this path. And every time he's like, but I read this, so I'm gonna just check this one thing out. I mean, if I found out that my great grand ancestor was some super badass person, I feel like I would pull some threads myself to try and find out. I mean, I wouldn't let it go either. You're not doing anything else. So you literally just came back from war. Like, a Nine-Tails just tried to rape you. You found out that it's a lot. Your ancestors were white and some like crazy cult people. Yeah, I want to know.
You know you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Now we know
there's magic.
Right?
People
magic
don't die.
exists
People
for real.
Die.
Like
that's the thing. You also know that people come back from the dead. Your whole girlfriend like died and came back. So like, do you really care anymore?
You've seen too much. Well, actually, that's one thing I like about this episode. It reminded us. It took us to Tick pre-seeing magic Tick. So the fact that he's seen the Kumiho, it almost kind of gives us a reason for why he doesn't react too crazy later on, because it's like, I've seen this shit
before. It also makes sense why he's so chill with every single thing Letty does.
I've seen this shit before.
He's like, yo, as long as you don't sprout tails, we're good. Just like,
right,
no tails, that's my only rule, and then we're good.
Sadie's, I want to talk about the final part of the episode. You know, they go back, Jaya and her mum go back to the shaman that had given, you know, that had granted this wish to the mother, and the shaman says, you know, there's many more deaths to come before this is over. Dun dun dun.
She said, you haven't even embraced your darkness.
You will see countless deaths.
This is without it.
Done. It's like,
this is without the darkness, what we've seen.
So, you know, what does this all mean? Do we think, is Jaya going to come over to the States? You know, is she going to...
I think that darkness is going to come because Jaya is going to get her heart broken. I think we all know where that's coming. Since we know that Jaya...
Triangle.
Yeah, like, Jaya's already been able to have communication with him. And in 2020, if you can text somebody, and you can always meet up and reach somebody. So if we can see it in this time period when they have to do an operator call to all the way to another country and they're still able to communicate, I am definitely foreseeing that Jaya is going to make her little booty all the way to the U.S. And I think that's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
That's a nice booty, by the way. I wasn't expecting
that. Everybody's got a nice booty in this show. This is a show of nice booty.
I think that was a requirement. Right. I think it came with reading.
Turn around, please. Put your pants down.
Twirl, and all right, we'll call
it.
We're doing a screen test with booty. Booty screen
exactly.
test.
We just need your measurements.
Not about titties. This show is not about the nip. It's about the booty. So let's see what you got.
Mike, I have a question for you. Are you team Tick Letty or Tick Jaya?
Tick Jaya.
Dun, dun. Ooh, Raven.
Ooh. Sorry, I mean, like I like Letty independently. Like.
That's because Mike is still trying to get in there. He's like,
doesn't mean nothing, okay? Like
hypothetical world. If I fall into that storybook, you know, I can meet Letty. You never know.
You know,
Mike push him that way. Be like, it's okay. You know, like that's.
It's fine.
Congratulations, Mike just recently got married. Congratulations,
Woo!
Mike.
Congrats, Mike.
Nerdy Bird got the ring. He put a ring on it.
I feel like
we're all
you know, a lot of couples have your famous, you know, you have the one who's like your significant other would allow, famous person. I feel like for Mike it's Letty. That's why he's hoping for.
Everybody in this podcast is Letty. Raven and Paris have
Selma.
the same thing.
Right.
Mike and Raven have to share Letty between the two of their partners.
So Raven, what about you? Are you team?
Mine would be totally.
Are you team Letty Tick or Tick Jaya? Because that's going to come to a head.
That's really tough. Because I feel like I'm team Letty Tick, like friendship forever. Like I feel like just they're so like down for each other that I feel like that's so hard to find. That like I hope that if it didn't work out, that they would still be like down ass friends to one another. But it's tough because Jaya is so like I feel like her level is so different now. You know, like I feel like. I don't know. I feel like it's with any story that we watch where it's like somebody that's immortal is with some human, you know? So I think just from like all of the sci-fi shit that I'm into, just from how I've seen this play out, I'm going to go team Tick and Letty, you know? She's dead, but like she's still a person.
And Sadie's. Sadie's. Yeah. What are you? Are you team, to break it even? Mike is team Jaya.
I am going to be
Team Letty. What are
you? This is going to be the ultimate middle school white girl response. Where like, I just don't want to be put in the middle of everything, and just like, I like really want everybody to just think like, I just feel like I can't do confrontation right now. So like, just don't talk to me about it.
So you can't handle it. Well, I think it will come at some point. It will come to a head.
I think they're gonna. I plead the fifth because I think that either way, my heart is going to be broken. They've gotten me episodes 1 through 6? No, 1 through 5 to get me into this, Letty Tick ship. And now episode 6, you got me in a whole, Kumiho Tick ship in one episode.
Letty is like nuanced though. I feel like Letty would be like, an occasional third, maybe.
And I feel bad because
she lives in another country.
Yeah, I feel bad because I feel
she doesn't have to be here all the time.
I feel like this show makes you.
Letty is like the undead now. She might have some new sex.
No, but this show makes you like love
the undead in a spirit.
But I feel like this show is the ultimate, makes you love the other woman because, Jaya is obviously the main one. That's who he's broke down all the walls and the barriers. But then, they got broken
up. Took his virginity.
And then, they both had traumas and they didn't have enough time to talk about it. And then, the show opens with Letty. So, we get invested in this other woman. And then you realize, oh, no. You're like, oh, no.
But Letty was there first. They were BFS as kids.
But BFS doesn't you weren't vagina friends. You were just best friends.
Yeah, that's true. Before we finish, Mike, any differences from the book in this episode?
Yeah, no, not much. Just everything. It was the whole episode. It was just rich. It was the only thing that was mentioned in the books was that he was in Korea, and then HBO was just like, okay, we'll write that part. Don't worry.
HBO said, we got it.
We'll go with that.
We'll figure it out from here.
Sadie's, this episode doesn't have that many cultural references. We mentioned Judy Garland.
But it's the main one. Yeah. It's the main one that's nuanced throughout the whole show. It's Meet Me in St. Louis, which is a 1945 film starring Judy Garland. And Jaya resonates with the main star, Judy Garland. The song, which is shown throughout the whole movie, it's called the trolley song from Meet Me in St. Louis. So listen, that's all you need to know. And then the voiceover at the end was actually a voiceover done by Judy Garland talking about an interview of how she reflected on her life. So that was where that kind of played in when Jaya and her mother went to go see the shaman. But I
loved how that was used, by the way. It's unexpected. I wouldn't ever think to put that visual and that voiceover together. But in the context of the whole episode, like Ray said at the beginning of this podcast, where it talks about, what expectations versus reality. The Judy Garland's reality of what happens. I a few years ago, I saw the Judy Garland movie with, what's her name, Renee Zellweger?
It was last year. That was last year.
Yeah,
that was literally last year. So I think that's why it was nice that they did this. And it's from, if any of you Judy Garland fans are out there, it's called Judy Speaks. And it was just based on her talking and reflecting about her life.
again, we mentioned that this episode also brings up Count of Monte Cristo, the book. And it's funny I bring that up because this past week, a top Google search was Alexander Dumas, black, question mark?
Yes.
Okay, yes, he was.
Yes.
Also wrote one of my favorite books, Three Musketeers. I love that. I love that story.
But that was the first cultural reference that we mentioned, so that's why I didn't mention it.
Yeah, I love this episode. This episode is great. Once again, we only have 4 episodes left, though, guys. Dun dun dun. We had a.
But I'm also like, how are you gonna bridge all
Right,
this
I think
shit?
there's a lot to
What
go.
do you?
Had faith.
I literally can't even explain what this show is about.
Right.
It's like here's the world, and these are things that happen in the world.
Thank
which is
God.
fun. But I'm like, what the hell is this about, though? You know,
Raven, you're
like
gonna
bring
have
it
to
in.
read.
What's it about?
You're gonna have to read the book, like the 3 of us are gonna do. You're gonna have to do it. I think you can. I think this one
No, but I
will
feel
make
like-
the cut.
I mean, I'll read it.
I feel like after this episode,
it's
it's
like
like-
shit for once.
I feel like after this episode, if you read the book, you're like, well, fuck that shit. This is all not in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Like, it
true.
doesn't even matter. 'cause
It's
this
kind of
whole
like Game of
episode-
Thrones and
Yeah.
Game of Thrones the
HBO.
book. There's no point to really watch like Game
You're
of
just gonna have
Thrones.
Well, as long as in the
expectations.
end Letty doesn't just set fire to all of Chicago, I'm okay.
On that
Like,
note,
just let it burn.
on that note, thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank
She
you.
just sets fire to only Southside.
Thank you.
That's a Game of Thrones.
Thank you,
Thank
Rocket
you.
Mike.
Thank you, English and American Dave.
Thank you, Raven, as always.
Thank you.
My name is English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch review of Lovecraft Country Episode 6. And as always, Raven, peace, guys.